Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. Excuse me, I'll just have a drop of cranberry before I start. I get a dry throat when I'm speaking. This is called The Curious Case of Austin Lloyd, a ghostly story by Harry Riley. This story is fiction, and resemblance to anyone, living or dead, is coincidental. The toothache was unbearable, and after a week of misery, Austin Lloyd's wife Nora accompanied him to the dentist. One side of his mouth was badly swollen, and he was told he needed urgent treatment to remove a badly infected tooth in his upper jaw. At that time, Austin was 34 years old. He was small and thin, and had a pallid, pockmarked complexion, owing to adolescent acne. His hair was fair and quite fine, and he had a habit of continually fussing with it. By trade he was a bookbinder in a small market town in the north of England. The dentist informed him the extraction would be difficult and would take a while, and he was asked if he had any objection to being anaesthetised by gas. He said not, and so the dentist duly went about his work, while Nora sat nervously in the waiting room. After an inordinately long time, during which the dentist and his nurse administered more gas, whilst they battled to remove a stubborn long-rooted tooth, Austin eventually came spinning back down to consciousness. He opened his eyes and didn't seem to realise where he was, and then he gave a half smile and remarked that he'd been ill. The dentist stared at him in alarm. The man was not speaking in his normal voice. He gave his patient a drink of water and was rewarded with a distinctly German-sounding Dankeschön, and then the patient swung his head round and inquired, "Where's Constance?" The dentist instructed Austin to remain in the chair and asked the nurse to fetch his wife. Nora came in and was met with a look of incomprehension by her husband. He didn't recognise her and started rambling on in German. Nobody had any idea what was going on, and so, with no sign of improvement, after further 15 minutes, the dentist got on the phone to the hospital accident and emergency personnel, who immediately sent round an ambulance. Over the next 2 weeks, as an inpatient, several physicians examined Austin Lloyd, and eventually his wife was told he was to be admitted to psychiatric clinic, as her husband was convinced he was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Nora was puzzled and said to her knowledge her husband had never been out of the country. He hated the Germans because his father had been a prisoner of war in a German concentration camp. He had no musical tendencies, and they always took their annual holidays at the seaside because he had simple tastes and was rather partial to his little stick of Blackpool rock. She was told to prepare herself for a shock as she followed the doctor along the corridor to the restroom, where a concert was obviously in full swing. As the doctor opened the double swing doors for her, she could see 3 rows of patients, doctors and nurses, giving a loud roar of applause to the pianist on the stage, who was just in the act of performing a very low and elaborate bow. The musician was none other than Austin, her tone-deaf husband. Without acknowledging the interruption, the pianist sat down again and began to play in the most amazingly fluent manner. She sat down at the back with the doctor, who whispered that this was her husband's own composition. During several tests they had done, he had played the violin like a distinguished maestro, listened to a piano concerto, and having consigned it to memory, had written it down and reproduced the whole piece with very few errors. He could speak fluent German and Italian, and claimed he was Emperor Joseph's court composer. He was now playing Mozart's favourite piano concerto, number 20, in D minor, on their battered old piano, and making sweet music. After the performance, and before she was allowed to speak to a strangely deluded husband, Nora was introduced to another doctor, who explained he had previously put Austin in an hypnotic trance, and he had given them his life story without hesitation. How he was born in Salzburg to Leopold and Anna Maria, Roman Catholic parents, how he had a sister he called Nano, and that music was his life. He was familiar with all the known practices of Freemasonry, and was married to Constance. Nora was then taken to the sparse single room where Austin was being treated. He registered her presence with barely a nod and no flicker of recognition, and apologised in a peculiar Austrian accent. Excuse me. That he had no time for visitors, as he had to press on and finish his requiem. She showed him a photo of Victor, their baby son, and he took the picture, looked up and smiled, saying the boy reminded him of his youngest son, Franz Xavier. Austin Lloyd spent most of his time in the clinic writing music, cursing Antonio Salieri and giving the doctors cause for concern as he became physically weaker. He never returned to his former self and died of a fever in the clinic less than 4 months after his admission. He had impressed all the hospital consultants with his virtuoso musical performances, and several internationally renowned concert musicians had marvelled at his wondrous displays at the hospital. But it had taken too much out of his fragile frame, and he never finished his requiem. He was 35 years old. Mozart died, 35, leaving his requiem incomplete. End.